shit happens to you to force you to sit in those uncomfortable moments, so you learn so much more about yourself. So when that opportunity, that better opportunity does come, you are more than ready because you've done the work to get there instead of rushing it and you weren't.
Today on the show, we've got Megan Anderson, MMA fighter and ESPN analyst, and she takes us from the ultimate cry for help, her suicide attempt, to a new outlook of hard work and sacrifice, and the realization that sometimes the best things in life are the removal of the bad things. Her core beliefs that motivate and drive her daily actions. And then we wrap it up with an epic slate. Harry Potter versus Lord of the Rings. Let's get into it.
There was a bunch of different things we wanted to talk about, and one of the things that had actually happened about a month prior in Massachusetts, there was a 15-year-old boy who took his life, and he left a suicide note. And the suicide note says, if someone says hello to me today, I won't do it. There was no one on the face of the earth that thought that that life mattered enough to look at that kid that day and say hello. And I'm not saying that it was their responsibility with the decision he made, but that really struck me about the power of something so small that can make such a big difference in somebody's life at a time when they really need it. Have you had any moments where you were in a really tough spot and there was just something that seemed maybe so small to somebody else that made a big difference in that moment for you, either positively or negatively?
Yeah, well, I actually have attempted suicide before. I tried to overdose on pills. I was 19, I think, at the time. It was my second year in the military. And yeah, I had this officer in my second year that wasn't the best. She kind of abused her power and authority, and she liked to micromanage. And 18, 19-year-old Megan was rebellious and didn't want to listen. And I'm a person that I'm not going to listen to you and follow you if I don't respect you. And she definitely didn't have my respect. And she made an example out of me, and I was constantly in trouble. And it got to the point where I was so afraid to leave my room because I didn't want to get in trouble. I was scared I was gonna, be brought in again, or this is, her make another example of me. And it got to the point where I just, I was like, I just don't want to be here anymore. And I think looking back now, I think there was a part of me that was like, that was my way of thinking. But I think there was also a very small part of like, it was kind of attention seeking so that people realized that there was something really wrong. Because I didn't know how to tell them, and I didn't know how to communicate that because I felt so isolated. And I think there was a small part of that was a cry for help, and I didn't know how any other way to do that. And so yeah, I ended up in the hospital. I remember I ended up because I had been seeing like a counselor / therapist like through the military, or before it even happened, and she apologized. I remember she apologized to me afterwards. She's like, I missed all of the signs and I should have caught it, and she didn't. And yeah, after it was like a really strange time because my parents were obviously really like upset and about it, and was understandably so. But I also I had a really strained relationship with my grandparents for a long time because they grew up pretty religious, and that's obviously not Like they don't believe in that, and so they were angry with me for a really long time, not because I did that, but because it went against their beliefs. I was like, what? I was like, that's what you took from that, but okay. So yeah, I have never, I mean, never is a strong word. I've never gotten to that point ever again. I do, like, have I thought about it? Have I had suicidal ideation and thoughts? Oh, 100%, all the time. But I understand what that is now. Like, I understand that you can have those thoughts just as long as you don't act on them. And I have never come to a point where I've even been remotely close to wanting to act on them, like in a very long time.
How do you take that thought and hold space with it and not act on it? Are there tools that you've learned to use? Or, I mean, the first thing you mentioned is now you know, you've had experience and you've tasted that and you've gone through it. But is there something else that's helped you, those thoughts come up and then you can sit in a space where you can just work through them and come out the other side?
I think a lot of it is understanding that I have been through so much and I've come through it. Like, this is just a period of my life that will, if I just keep getting up and focusing on 1% every day, this is also something that I will get through as well. Like, bad times don't last forever. And I deal with, so I have been diagnosed with depressive mood disorder. So I have the lows of bipolar, I just don't have the highs.
Okay.
So it's like, I'm like kind of neutral, and then I will have dips. And so over the years, it's identifying when I'm starting to go into a low episode, figuring out ways to prevent that from happening, or if I'm not able to catch it as quickly, being okay with, like, this will pass. Like, this isn't the end of the world. Like, you are okay to like, your feelings are valid, your emotions are valid, everything that you are feeling and experiencing is okay. But it's not going to be forever. Like, you just got to stick it out, make sure that you are eating, make sure you're drinking water, trying to do as much exercise as you can. Like, if you don't want to, like, that's okay. Like, you don't have to feel obligated, just as long as you get up every day and do one thing, whether that's wash your hair, have a shower, brush your teeth, make yourself feel like a human. Like, that's okay. That's you checked off that day. Like, you're still here. So for me, it's like learning my triggers and how to cope with that. Because, like, for so long I was like, and half the time I'm like, I can't even tell you why I feel down, or I feel despair, or depressed. Like, I can't even tell you why, and I can't even tell you what what triggered this. I said, I can't help it but feel that way. So, like, for me, it was a lot of trial and error, a lot of understanding that, like, this will pass. Like, it always passes. Sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's 2 weeks, sometimes it's like a month or a couple months, but it always passes. And just as long as you try to be as less self-destructive in that period of time, like, you will always come out on the other side.
But I read this line and it spoke to me. It said, you battle hard times with true thoughts.
Yeah, well, it's consistency over time equals results. And it doesn't have to be very much, but eventually it's that little point, that little percent, that little 0.5% adds up to becoming a bigger thing. So, I mean, there's been so many times where shit just keeps happening to me, and it's so hard to not sit there and be like, why me? I'm not a religious person, but like there's that saying like God gives, his toughest battles to his strongest warriors. I'm like, I don't want to be a warrior anymore. I'm so tired of having to do it alone, having to battle constantly. Like, when is it my time? Like, when is it going to be me to finally have a freaking rest? But I can't control that. And you can only control the controllables. And I mean, I can sit there all day and have a pity party for one, but it's not productive. Yeah, it's tough. And you just please, universe, give me a break. Like, can I just have one thing go my way? And it's so hard too, like when you have so many people around you that see your value and see your potential, and like there's like big things are coming for you, but like time and time again it just doesn't happen, and it's easy to be discouraged, to give up. But you wouldn't be here today without the troubles and the struggles and the self-doubt and people doubting you and you proving them wrong. So what's another challenge? Like, it's like I feel like we're in a universe right now where everybody wants everything like right now. Like, I want a new house right now.
Yeah.
Like, I want this, $500,000 right now. Like, there's so many people are in a position where like they don't sit in being uncomfortable, and it's such a fast turnover world that we live in that sometimes I feel like shit happens to you to force you to sit in those uncomfortable moments, so you learn so much more about yourself. So when that better opportunity does come, you are more than ready because you've done the work to get there, instead of rushing it and you weren't. Like, you thought that you were ready, but you probably weren't. So yeah.
It's so interesting as you're saying that. I'm seeing you sitting right here, right now, and in my mind I'm like, that's why you're sitting in this chair. Everything you've gone through, the process you went through, the experiences you've gone through, so that you could be equipped for this moment to be able to share hope, to be able to share your experience with someone who hasn't been able to experience what you've learned yet and how you've worked through it, and to know they're not alone. Yeah. It's just amazing that it's a full circle moment. Like, here you are, you're an example of what you just shared. So I'm just gonna pivot off of it a little bit, because you mentioned a couple of things that I just want to grab before I let you go today. So tell me about the best thing in your life right now.
Just being able to do what I want, if that makes sense. Like, I try to align myself with people and things that are authentic to my beliefs. And I would say removing myself from toxic people and environments have helped so much with that, because all of that stress and like toxic like shit that you deal with, and the self-doubt and the gaslighting and manipulation, like, people don't realize, because it creeps up on you. Like, it doesn't start out bad. It starts out good, and it progressively gets worse, and you don't really understand how bad it got until you got out. And so I would say, like, removing myself from like those people and environments, like, I would say like my happiness is like a night and day difference.
Just because of that alone.
Yeah.
Making a healthier environment for yourself.
Yeah, and just being like not putting myself in situations to be taken advantage of, and just doing things that make me happy. Like, if I have the privilege of being able to wake up every day. I get to work out. I get to, do so many different things. Like, and that's like, I learned pretty early on that I was never a 9 to 5. I was never a 9 to 5. I just don't have the patience for it.
Really? I would have never.
Surprise.
I also heard you say the words "get to," which is really important. You don't have to, you get to.
Yeah.
I heard that.
I like, it's a privilege. And don't get me wrong, like, I've worked hard to get to this point. Don't think, like, I don't want to say that in a way that, like, I feel like I come across as I'm better than other people, because I'm not, but like, I worked so hard to get to the point where, like, I'm in a position that I'm able to do what I do. But I also, like, I am hustling all the time. Like, from, you know, an analyst perspective at ESPN, I commentate for Invicta. I, you know, do film and TV shows now. I stream. I do so many different things that
You train your butt off, which
yeah, I like I you know, make sure that I'm prioritizing my workouts and eating right and all that kind of stuff. And like, I've worked so hard to get here that, like, it is a privilege, but it doesn't mean that, like, just because I've got here that I can slack off, because it can be taken away as quickly, you know, quicker than I got it. So I think it's just, you know, I was always raised to be hardworking, to be humble, to be grateful for.
That's what I'm hearing, gratitude.
Yeah, for a lot of, you know, to be grateful for the opportunities and the things that I have. I mean, we all like to, I wish I had this car or this house
Sure.
or this, like, yeah, and like, there are goals that you can achieve to, but I mean, when I first moved to the States, I had $1,000 and 2 bags. One was a bag of training gear, one was a bag of clothes. And that was in September 2015, and by February 2020, I bought my first house.
Wow.
And I worked, like, so I've been here for almost, 8 years now. I've only seen my family 3 times in those 8 years. So one was at the start of 2017 when I fought for the Invicta World title. They came over and watched me. The other one was February of 2019. I went back home and surprised them. And then I fought in Australia in October of 2019. That's the only 3 times that I've seen my family in the last 8 years. So I've sacrificed a lot to be where I am today. And whilst I get to experience all these cool things, I also miss out on a lot with my family. And that's a compromise that I have to make.
Yeah.
Like, is it worth it at the end of the day?
You had mentioned a couple times, and a couple times that I've heard you say some things over the time we spent together, you've mentioned this in your family, in your sphere. You've mentioned spirituality, you've mentioned religion, and I just wanted to talk to you about where you're at with your faith. What does faith mean to you? And I think, like so many people, you have seen, unfortunately, some of the darker sides of religion, and they're humans too. They're people
Right.
just trying to figure it out. But can you just share where you sit today with what spirituality, what faith looks like to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really a very religious person. I went to a religious high school, so it's kind of like shoved down your throat a little bit. And I mean, as a teenager growing up, that's not really something that you're gonna catch on to if you
Right.
weren't kind of really raised like that.
Yeah, you're not asking for it like candy at a candy store. You're like, I'm good.
Yeah. Oh God. But yeah, I don't know. I'm like a person that I don't care what you believe in, who you believe in, what religion, just as long as you're kind. And you don't try to force your religion on other people. And just because you live a certain way doesn't mean that that's right for everybody, and vice versa. And I think, I don't know, I believe that, like, the good that you put out in the world will come back to you. And same thing vice versa. If you put negative out into the world, negative will come back to you. And you just have to try to be as authentically you as possible and be a genuine human being and work on yourself and become a better person so you can become a better member of society. I've always been like a really big advocate for standing up for people. Like I don't like seeing, obviously I grew up being heavily bullied, but I'm an advocate for the people that don't have a voice, and I will do that, and I will advocate for them like at all costs, because like no one should feel like that, no matter how old you are, whether you're male, female, whatever. Like it doesn't really matter. And I think it's just being I keep coming back to it, being a kind person. I feel like there is always room at the table for everyone. Like we all bring something unique to the table. And so there's no reason for you to put others down to make yourself look good. If you're truly confident and comfortable in yourself, then you know that it is not a competition between me and you, it's a competition between me and me. Like you provide something different that others can relate to, and I'm going to provide something completely different, and they're both okay. It doesn't mean that we're in competition. And I feel like we're in such a world these days where competition is fostered where it shouldn't be. Like we can both be successful at the same time. Your success doesn't mean that I'm not being successful.
Really? Is that
I know.
possible?
Surprise.
Who would have thought?
But like, and vice versa. Like me having success in one field doesn't mean that you aren't going to be successful. It's like everybody's journey is different. Like some people, it happens faster than others. Some people are going to have to struggle a little bit more, and
what
then
is
it
success?
Happens.
That's the metric too. Like if I'm a good dad or if I'm a good neighbor, is that as successful as having a high-paying job? So it really gets interesting when you think about
and I feel like in the
being
MMA
human.
world too, like it's in the MMA world, it's very much because it's an individual sport, but you do train as a team. So there is a lot. I would say like coming up, like young people kind of coming up through until they kind of get to that UFC higher level, you start seeing the why them and not me mentality. Like, oh, she got this opportunity, he got this opportunity. That means I'm bad, I'm not good enough because I didn't get that opportunity. I'm like, no. Like you're two completely different people, two completely different careers, two completely different journeys. Just because I got this sponsorship doesn't mean you aren't going to get a sponsorship down the line. But I feel like there's such a self-doubt in that mindset, because it's you're letting your own self-perception and value become based on what somebody else is doing in their life
or not doing.
Yeah, and it's so dangerous.
So you just hit on right there. You just hit on like 5 different things. So we talked about we battle hard things with true thoughts. So in that scenario right there, that kind of thought, when I pull that apart, there's envy, there's comparison, there's scarcity, there's all these things that like when I pull that apart, if I'm thinking that way, those are real emotions, but they're not true thoughts. When I start to go, there is plenty for everyone. I'm so happy for them. I don't need to compare them to them. It's me to me. So I can take those 5 thoughts that aren't healthy and I can put a different thought that matches it up. Then I get to decide, okay, which one am I going to breathe life into?
Right.
Which one am I going to choose to believe? Because I can believe both thoughts. But until we're aware that there's another choice, this is what we're trying to do together. Yeah. Give people go, oh my gosh, there is another choice.
Right.
And now you have a choice, which isn't ours. For them at home, we have no responsibility and we have no right to their choices. But we do have an obligation and an opportunity to give them a chance to make better choices.
Right. Well, it's like I wake up every day, like my screensaver on my phone is, I don't chase, I attract. What belongs to me will simply find me. And I haven't always had that mindset.
Me neither.
I mean,
but I love that you do.
It's taken a long time to get to that point, and I wake every day, and I don't think I speak affirmations to myself, because you can think them, but when you speak them, you start projecting it into the universe. Like, you know, I'll speak stuff like, all of the Analyst, ESPN opportunities are going to come to me when it's ready. All of the film, TV opportunities are going to come to me when it's ready. You know, and whatever it may be, whatever stuff, and it kind of, when you speak it into existence, it allows you to take away the expectations of like time, because you start realizing like it's going to happen. Like, do I wish it was tomorrow? Yeah, of course. I said, but I know realistically that's not the case.
Yeah.
So, like when you start
That's
kind of
a
like
healthy
doing
mantra.
things like that, and like, I mean, some people might think, oh my God, you're delusional, that's never going to happen. I said, but is it? I said, because like I would say, like ever since I started that, like I've started to, you know, little by little, piece by piece, like things coming out. Like, you know, the Extraction 2 came out literally on a Friday. That next Monday, a message came in for another opportunity.
The dominoes.
I was like,
That's the compound effect.
I was like, what are the odds? Like it's like little piece by piece, little by little, the domino effect, things start to happen, and you know, it's wild how if you kind of break it down and remove, because like there is not at any point I'm like, oh, so and so is doing this, I need to do this. Like I don't ever think about anybody else anymore. I mean, like in that type of way.
Right.
Like, yeah, I care about people and stuff like that, but I mean, do I want my friends and I do want people to succeed in what they want to do? 100%.
Yep.
Yeah. Because like, if I'm going to the top, I want everybody coming to the top with
We rise
me.
together.
Right? And so, but the thing is, like when I break it down to its core value, like I just focus on me. And when you focus on me, you stop worrying about all of the shit that doesn't matter, and that's everything else. Like I don't care what Joe Blow's doing. Like I don't care, like, you know, if like one of my really good friends gets this opportunity that I wanted, yeah, it's upsetting and it stings. I said, but I'm still happy for them. And I'm like, I know that, like, I just wasn't meant to do that. That like it wasn't the right time for me.
So healthy.
Like something else is going to, you know, pop up when it's ready, or when I'm ready to receive it.
Yeah, you've talked, and then I'm going to let you out. We're going to close out with a fun one. I've heard you mention over and over, and the recurring theme is compounding, compounding, compounding. And I never understood that for myself. I wanted my work to result in something that I thought was worth the work, or this big enough payoff that made the work worth it. And really, it's never that way. Einstein said one of the most powerful forces in the universe is compounding. He said that. He was pretty smart. And we've seen it all the time. And it was seemingly insignificant things that, when they're done consistently over time, turn into something really significant. And it's always been the way. And it's not easy. You mentioned it earlier. Most of us want it now. But the real way is the process, the being okay with that, not having the expectation of, oh, if I'm not doing that, then I'm not good enough, and I deserve this. And so I'm just so grateful for everything you've talked about. I'm going to let us get off light, and I'm just going to throw these out there. Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. I mean,
you can't make me choose.
I asked you about things that you do for fun.
I would say if I had to choose, I would pick Lord of the Rings.
I love the Lord of the Rings. I love
100%.
it. Oh,
Don't get me wrong.
But I fell in love with Harry Potter in the pandemic.
But Lord of the Rings is just too epic. It is like one of the greatest cinematic masterpieces of all time.
Well, I think we're biased, but I agree with you. I love it. I still watch it all the time. You're getting on me about reading the books. Tell me about one of the scenes, one of the characters, a moment in those movies where you're like, that's it. I love that so much about this franchise. Is there a moment? Is there a character? Is there a scene?
Eowyn, like, and Merry disguising themselves, and like I think that was like, that's her whole story is such a powerful story, because like she truly just wanted to be there and fight for the people that she loved in her home, and she knew that she was capable of doing it, and she played such an important role too.
Oh yeah.
And I think that was like a huge moment, because it showed that it didn't matter who you are, everyone is important in the grand scheme of things.
With that is the most truth we've said in this whole, there's a ton of them, but that is so true. And every single person has this incredible greatness in them, in this moment to do really important things for this life that we live in. And I'm so thankful that you're doing yours.
I try. I try. Professor McGonagall is the MVP of Harry Potter.
That's
and
exactly
she doesn't
right.
Get the respect. Like, Albus Dumbledore was kind of bad when you think about it at the end. Like, he groomed Harry to essentially,
yeah.
Like,
but he knew it was the only way, and
Yeah.
he knew that there was something on
and
the
if
other side.
Professor McGonagall had known, she would have chewed him out, and things would be different.